Elden Ring's Shadow of the Erdtree DLC didn't just bring us thrilling new landscapes and challenging bosses, it also introduced fascinating new incantations and sorceries that shed more light on the lore of this dark and twisted world. Today we're unraveling the mysteries behind these spells and the tragic figures they're connected to. But first, I've got some exciting news. I just launched a Discord server for the channel, so if you want to chat about Elden Ring, Skyrim, or anything else, come join us. The link is in the description below. Now, the DLC introduced 5 new incantation and sorcery types: Miquellan, Spiral, Messmer Fire, Finger, and Scadutree. But we won't be covering Miquellan incantations today, as they have limited lore. So with that said, let's unravel the magic and the mysteries behind these new spells, starting with incantations. Messmer Fire incantations have a tragic origin, tied to Messmer the Impaler, the firstborn son of Queen Marika the Eternal and Radagon of the Golden Order. Messmer's story is one of curse and isolation. From birth, an abyssal serpent coiled within him, threatening to consume him. To contain this darkness, Marika took drastic action, removing Messmer's eyes and replacing one with a seal of grace. This granted him some control over his inner turmoil, but it couldn't erase his pain. Like his younger sister, Melina, Messmer was burdened with a vision of fire from birth, a flame he despised and tried to extinguish, but it refused to die. In his profound loneliness, he found solace in Commander Gaius, another cursed soul who would later lead Messmer's armies in the wars to come. One of Messmer's most tragic tasks was given to him by his own mother, to purge the tower-dwelling people of the Land of Shadow, who did not bear the light of grace.
Those stripped of the grace of gold shall all meet death in the embrace of Messmer's flame.
Even when Marika seized all contact, Messmer continued his relentless crusade. Key to Messmer's forces were the Black Knights and the elite Fire Knights, his personal guard. Each Fire Knight hailed from a noble family, yet they were shunned for pledging allegiance to Messmer. They alone truly understood his serpent-like flames and the suffering tied to his cursed existence. Now residing in the Shadowkeep with their master, these Fire Knights are clad in distinctive armor, a pointed helm, a red cape, and twin golden snakes around the neck. This attire enhances their mastery of Messmer Fire incantations, and as tarnished, we can wield 2 of these powerful incantations ourselves. The first is Fire Serpent. To grab this one, head to the storehouse back section Site of Grace in the Shadowkeep. From there, climb the massive ladder and head past those book-reading shades until you reach the balcony. There, you will find your prize. This only needs 16 faith to cast, and it launches a flame that coils like a serpent, homing in on your enemy, completely unaffected by gravity. It's similar to the Flamesling incantation from the base game, which actually hits harder, but the Fire Serpent's speed, accuracy, and sheer style make it a brilliant addition to your arsenal. You can also boost it even further with the Fire Knight seal, Messmer's helm, the Fire Knight's armor, and the Godfrey icon. The second Messmer Fire incantation is the devastating Rain of Fire. To find this one, make your way to the Shadowkeep's West Rampart Site of Grace, and take the bridge all the way to the end. Keep an eye out for those pesky bats as you go, and at some point you'll notice a Fire Knight conjuring the very incantation we're after. To reach him safely, you can use the environment for cover, or just hop on Torrent to rush him down. Once he's defeated, you'll not only obtain the Rain of Fire incantation, but Salza's Hood as well. Now, the incantation in question has a hefty faith requirement of 52, but its power is undeniable. It summons a cloud of flame that rains down fire from above, hitting enemies multiple times. It has a medium to long range too, and can even be cast directly overhead if you're not locked on, making it perfect for crowd control. Just like Fire Serpent, its damage can be boosted with the Fire Knight gear and the Godfrey icon. Finally, for those who manage to conquer Messmer himself, there's the ultimate prize, Messmer's Orb. This incantation, wielded by Messmer himself, is a spectacle to behold. Once you've defeated him, just trade in his remembrance of the Impaler with Anaya at the Round Table Hold, and it's yours. Just like the Impaler himself, you leap into the air, harnessing Messmer Fire into this condensed orb of pure power. Then you crash down upon your enemy, unleashing an explosive burst of flame. It's a high risk, high reward incantation, as there's no hyper armor when casting it, leaving you vulnerable. But time it right and you'll deal moderate stagger on contact, completely knocking down foes with the explosion. You will need 60 faith however to wield it, but given it's one of the coolest spells in the game, it's a no-brainer. These incantations are all about harnessing the power of the spiral, a central concept in the game's lore, that's also referred to as the Divine Gate or Tower. The spiral is essentially how the Crucible's power is channeled, and the Crucible itself, well, it's this insanely powerful force connected to life, death, and divinity. So to put it simply, the spiral is the engine that makes life, death, and divinity possible, and corpses are a key part of the fuel that keeps it running. It's heavy stuff, but it's what makes the Elden Ring world so fascinating. Spiral-related magic typically involves something moving in a winding or spinning motion, and this perfectly ties in with the mechanics of certain weapon arts in the game. Take the unique weapon skill Ordovis's Vortex for example. It channels the Crucible's power to spin the entire sword in mid-air, creating a whirling vortex of destruction. Similarly, Siluria's Woe thrusts the tree spear in a spiraling motion, enveloping it in a vortex of wind that cuts through enemies. And Devonia's Vortex unleashes the raw power of the Crucible Vortex, violently spinning the hammer around before slamming the ground with devastating force. But the spiral's significance extends beyond just spells and weapons. Remember Enulim, that massive tower with the spiral design? I mean, how could we forget? Well, it's believed to harness huge amounts of Crucible energy. It's even thought to be a gateway to godhood itself. That's why the spiral is also called the Divine Gate, and explains why Marika and Miquellan sought it out. With such power in existence, naturally there are those who crave it. The Hornsent people are a prime example, and their cultural and religious beliefs deeply intertwine with the spiral. To the Hornsent, this pattern is sacred. They worship the Crucible and revere it for the evolutionary gifts it grants them, symbolized by their distinctive tangled horns. The Divine Bird Warriors and Divine Beast Warriors are also considered sacred by the Hornsent, connected to the spiral pattern through their armor and incantations. Now, to wield the awesome might of spiral incantations, tarnished champions must possess unwavering faith. After all, it's this spiritual connection that allows one to channel the Crucible's energy and unleash these devastating spells. One such incantation is the Divine Beast Tornado. To acquire this beastly spell, you'll need to brave the ancient ruins of Rao. Make your way to the Templetown Ruin Site of Grace and head northeast until you come across an ancient temple. Inside, a fearsome Divine Beast dancing lion awaits, but conquer this beast and the incantation will be yours. With a faith requirement of 28, Divine Beast Tornado unleashes a swirling vortex of destruction, capable of striking multiple foes in its path. So to maximize its destructive potential, you'll want to cast it on large groups of enemies. You can also charge it up for a significant power boost, but even casting it quickly can stagger nearby enemies, offering some handy crowd control. But ideally, you'll want to cast this incantation from a distance and watch the chaos unfold. To enhance its might further, you can equip the Enraged Divine Beast Talisman and either the Divine Beast Helm or Divine Beast Head for additional damage boosts. Next, we have the Divine Bird Feathers incantation, also found in the ancient ruins of Rao. To get your hands on this one, head to the Church of the Bud main entrance, Site of Grace. From there, go north into the building, then east down the central stairway, and finally south to the outside. Just past the gazebo, you'll find the incantation on a corpse in the middle of the water. Now let's talk about why you really don't need this incantation. When casting it, you spread your arms like wings and release a flurry of feathers. You can also hold the cast button to continuously shoot the feathers, but it doesn't really improve things much at all. It makes things worse. I mean, look at my FP when I cast this thing. And the damage, the range. You'd have better luck tickling your enemies with an actual feather. It's not worth anyone's time, and if I were a divine bird, I'd be offended by the crucible and poop on the spiral. The next incantation we'll look at is the Watchful Spirit. This unique spell is found at the Ballarat Tower settlement, and to get your hands on it, you'll need to defeat the Divine Beast Dancing Lion residing there. After that, have a little chat with the Hornsent Grandam, but make sure you're wearing the Divine Beast head when you speak to her. After a couple of conversations, she'll bestow this incantation upon you. The lore behind this incantation tells us it's an entreaty from the Hornsent Grandam, summoning a guardian spirit to enact vengeance upon Messmer and those who betrayed and burned them. In gameplay terms, this translates to a skull spirit appearing above your head, periodically launching 4 projectiles at your foes. To cast it, you'll need 26 faith, but much like the Divine Bird Feathers, Watchful Spirit deserves no one's attention. The damage output is, to put it mildly, mediocre at best, and to add insult to injury, you can't even charge it up for a damage boost. But on the bright side, you can enhance its damage with the Braided Cord Robe, but honestly, that's about the only saving grace for this incantation. So, sorry Grandam. Now, golden arcs might be a bit trickier to find, but don't worry, this one is actually worth it. Your journey starts at the Morth Ruins Site Grace. From there, head southeast under the arched building and keep an eye out for another collapsed building with a small entrance. Inside, you'll discover a large crater with rooftops you can hop onto. Just around this corner, you'll find the Shattered Stone Talisman. You're welcome. From there, carefully drop down to the bottom and you'll see a small church guarded by 3 inquisitors. Venture inside and within a chest lies the coveted Golden Arcs incantation. As the in-game description reveals, this is a sorcery of the Tower Inquisitors, repurposed as an incantation of the Spiral. Requiring just 22 faith to wield, this incantation unleashes 3 fast-firing golden arcs that track your foe's movements. And this tracking ability, coupled with its fast casting animation, makes it a formidable tool for keeping the pressure on your enemies. And considering its low stat requirements, its damage output is actually very good, and can be amplified even further by charging, though this does extend its casting time slightly. To fully maximize its potential, you can equip the Scadutree Seal and Godfrey icon for an additional boost. Next, we delve into the Giant Golden Arc. This incantation lies hidden within the ruins of Unte, guarded by a dormant furnace golem. To awaken this behemoth and gain access to the incantation, you'll need to craft a hefty furnace pot. But to craft one of those, you'll first need the Greater Potentate Cookbook 2, found within the rundown Traveller's Rest in a Gravesite Plain. Once acquired, craft the hefty furnace pot using the necessary ingredients, and throw it into the golem's furnace to awaken it, freeing the entrance. At the cost of 34 faith, Giant Golden Arc unleashes a colossal arc that sweeps across the battlefield. It's essentially the 3 golden arcs condensed into a single devastating wave of energy that excels at crowd control. Unlike its smaller counterpart, the Giant Golden Arc passes through foes too, hitting enemies behind and leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. While its wide arc is ideal for open areas, it can also be surprisingly effective in narrow spaces, as only the middle portion of the projectile actually needs to collide with the environment for it to dissipate. However, its projectile does travel slower than the nimble Golden Arcs, so timing and positioning are crucial. Giant Golden Arc can be charged to increase its damage at the cost of extending casting time, and can be boosted by the Scadutree Seal and Godfrey icon, further enhancing its destructive capabilities. And now for the grand finale, Spira. This incantation, located in the heart of Lim itself, is a force to be reckoned with. To get your hands on it, head to the first rise site of grace. From there, take the west door, leading into the area jam-packed with Inquisitors. In the upper left corner, you'll find a staircase leading up, guarded by 2 more Inquisitors. Take the stairs, being careful to avoid their golden arcs, follow the path and turn right towards the tree. Drop down onto the branches and follow the one on the right. This will lead you to a small platform with a lone Inquisitor, praying to a statue, with a Spira incantation right in front of it. It costs a hefty 48 faith to cast, more than any other spiral incantation, but good things come at a price. With Spira, you summon a relentless spiral of light that erupts beneath your enemy's feet, dealing continuous damage for as long as you cast it. Yep, it's that devastating spell those annoying tower priests love to spam, but now we can wield its awesome power ourselves. Due to its nature, Spira excels at punishing slow-moving enemies, since the faster ones can outrun the spiral of light. So knowing your enemy beforehand and their movement speed will come in handy. While casting, you'll also be rooted in place, unable to move, but you can still switch targets, making it adaptable in the heat of battle. Spira may not be chargeable, but its continuous damage and the added boost from the Spiral Tree seal make it a truly formidable incantation. These spells delve deep into the mysteries surrounding the 2 fingers and the Greater Will. As you may know, the 2 fingers at the Round Table hold act as intermediaries, interpreting divine signals from the Greater Will. But the DLC takes us further, introducing us to Meta, the Mother of Fingers. Yep, as the name implies, Meta is the source of not just the 2 fingers, but also those unsettling finger creepers. So next time you're getting chased by one, you can send her a thank you note. She's a being from beyond the stars, once tasked with receiving cosmic signals from the Greater Will. However, tragically, a defect severed her connection, and this disconnection was inherited by her offspring. Within the Cathedral of Manus Meta, Count Ymir reveals the grim truth.
I fear that you have borne witness to the whole of it. The conceits, the hypocrisy of the world built upon the Earth Tree. The follies of men. Their bitter suffering. Is there no hope for redemption? The answer, sadly, is clear. There never was any hope. They were each of them defective, unhinged from the start. Marika herself, and the fingers that guided her. And this is what troubles me. No matter our efforts, if the roots are rotten, then we have little recourse.
Ymir's unique perspective as a sorcerer and astronomer sheds light on his motivations, and he believes humans, too, are divine, capable of direct communion with the Greater Will. Driven by this belief, Ymir seeks to replace Meta and establish his own link with the Greater Will.
Are you familiar with our findings? Long ago, we began as stardust, born of a great rupture far across the skies. We, too, are children of the Greater Will. Is that not divine? Is that not sublime? And yet, none can fathom its implications. Its utter brilliance.
His disturbing experiments involve creating a new child of the fingers from his own flesh, infused with Meta's essence.
My, you poor thing. Another bad dream, Yuri. Put that rotten thing out of your mind. That tangled mess can't hurt you.
But thankfully, amidst this darkness, we find the finger sorceries. Ymir is the one who sells the spells, and they represent his attempts to harness the power of the fingers directly. The first one up is Cherishing Fingers. This sorcery is found in the Cathedral of Manus Meta, specifically in the graveyard, but only after you've completed Count Ymir's questline. So you'd think with all the effort to get it, it must be incredible. Well, not quite. Requiring 36 intelligence to cast, this sorcery summons a circle of chunky fingers around you, supposedly warding off all projectiles. It can also stagger nearby enemies, and charging it knocks them away, inflicting more damage. damage. But the reality is that those protective fingers last for about 2 seconds, and that's it. So enjoy your fleeting protection. What's worse is that charging it up takes forever, and it doesn't even make the fingers last any longer. Plus, if you get hit while charging, you stagger and have to start the cast all over again. Yes, you can boost its damage with the Maternal Staff and Finger Robe, but let's be honest, it's yet another DLC spell that you can safely ignore. Next up, we have Fleeting Microcosm, available from Count Emir for 20,000 runes after completing the second step of his questline. This sorcery demands a hefty 42 intelligence, but unlike Cherishing Fingers, it's worth the investment. In action, this sorcery conjures an image of a miniature world, right at your enemy's feet. This microcosm pulses twice, releasing 2 distinct shockwaves. The first is a quick burst of energy, dealing some initial damage, followed by a much larger, more powerful pulse that can even knock smaller enemies off their feet, which can come in pretty handy in areas with dangerous drops. It also has a decent range, but it's most effective against slower or stationary enemies, like mages. That's because the microcosm only appears where you cast it, so if the enemy moves, they'll likely avoid the second, more devastating pulse. You can charge Fleeting Microcosm to amplify the damage of both its pulses, particularly the second one, which has a large blast radius, perfect for hitting multiple enemies in close proximity. To squeeze even more power out of Fleeting Microcosm, you can pair it with the Maternal Staff and Finger Robe for a damage boost. Next in line is Glintstone Nail, another sorcery offered by Count Emir after completing the first step of his questline for 12,000 runes. With an intelligence requirement of just 18, it's a pretty accessible option early on. Glintstone Nail, as the name suggests, fires a magic nail that homes in on your target. It does travel a little bit slower than other projectile sorceries like Glintstone Pebble, but its tracking is far superior, making it incredibly difficult for enemies to evade. The range on it is fantastic too, traveling further than Glintstone Pebble and inflicts significantly more damage. The casting time is a tad longer, but unlike the Pebble, you can charge the nail for increased damage. This makes Glintstone Nail ideal for sniping enemies from a distance, and you can increase its power with the Maternal Staff, Finger Robe, and Godfrey Icon. The last of the finger sorceries is Glintstone Nails. Much like its counterpart, it's also purchased from Count Emir for 12,000 runes after completing the first step of his questline. However, this one demands a higher intelligence investment of 32. Now at first glance, Glintstone Nails seems like a powerhouse, firing a volley of 6 nails compared to just a single projectile from its counterpart. And with that, you'd think more nails means more damage, but surprisingly that's not the case here. Glintstone Nails for some reason deals less damage than Glintstone Nail, and costs more than double the FP to cast. On top of that, I found that Glintstone Nail even has a slightly better range, so if you're looking for raw power and efficiency, Glintstone Nail is hands down the winner. But in Glintstone Nails' defense, it still has one extra use. If you're not locked onto an enemy, the nails spread out, potentially hitting multiple foes. This makes it somewhat useful in those very specific scenarios where you're surrounded. You can boost its damage with the Maternal Staff, Finger Robe, and Godfrey Icon. These sorceries draw their power from a truly monumental source, the Scadutree. Introduced in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, this colossal entity bears a striking resemblance to the iconic Erdtree from the Lands Between. However, the Scadutree is a different entity entirely, dwelling in the realm of shadow. This realm acts as a sort of afterlife, or perhaps a mirrored version of the Lands Between, but way more eerie. It's a place where the dead find their rest, a landscape filled with gravestones and mausoleums. And towering over this ethereal landscape is the Scadutree, a symbol as central to this place as the Erdtree is to the world of the living. Lore-wise, the Scadutree is shrouded in mystery, but we do know a few intriguing details. First, the Land of Shadow is deeply connected to the Lands Between. In fact, it's no coincidence that the Shadow of the Erdtree map almost perfectly overlays the Lands Between map, and this separate realm exists because of Queen Marika the Eternal. It was once part of the Lands Between, but she isolated it with an illusion to protect her rule and the Golden Order from certain threats. One such threat was the Divine Gate of Enurim, which could allow mortals and Empyreans to ascend to godhood. There's even a theory that Marika banished her own son, Messmer, to the Shadow Realm, fearing the power of his kindling and the abyssal serpent within him. These were serious threats to the Erdtree and her reign. And finally, we can't forget the Scadutree avatar. Like the Erdtree avatars of the Lands Between, this DLC boss guards the base of its tree, but this one is far more ferocious. In fact, we can even wield one of its devastating attacks as a sorcery, Impenetrable Thorns. This spell earned a reputation for being just plain OP, and is still very good even after its nerf. To grab this one, head to the Shadowkeep's Storehouse 7th floor Site of Grace. From there, navigate the tricky platforming until you reach this room. Head outside and carefully drop off the ledge to find the spell on a corpse. In combat, Impenetrable Thorns unleashes a multi-trail of 3 razor-sharp thorns that pierce your enemy. Each trail strikes a painful 3 times, and they boast impressive range and decent tracking, making it difficult for your enemies to escape. On top of its base damage, Impenetrable Thorns also causes bleed buildup, making it effective against almost everything, just maybe not on stairs for some reason. So yes, while it costs some of your own HP to cast, along with FP, the payoff is well worth it. To top it off, this sorcery is super accessible, requiring just 24 faith to cast. So if you want to become an overpowered sorcerer early on, this is a great start. To truly unleash its power, equip the Alberic set and the Staff of the Guilty to significantly boost your damage output. Now for the second and final Scadutree sorcery, Mantle of Thorns. Just like Impenetrable Thorns, you'll find this one in the Shadowkeep, specifically the Church District. Once you've drained the water there, you'll need to defeat the lesser ulcerated tree spirit to claim your prize. Now this one's interesting. Like Impenetrable Thorns, you basically stab yourself with a bunch of thorns, sacrificing some of your precious HP. But this time you cover your entire body with them for 30 seconds. And first off, it looks insanely cool, with thorns jutting out everywhere. But man, does it look painful. Like, I'm all for looking badass in battle, but not if it means having a thorn shoved up my butt. Anyways, in this thorny state, your dodge rolls will actually damage enemies, which sounds pretty cool when you think about it, especially since it's smart to roll into enemies, not away. But unfortunately, the damage is pathetic. And no, it doesn't cause bleed, even though it requires your own blood, making it practically useless. The only reason you'd ever want to use this is for role-playing, or doing a challenge run. It's honestly that bad, and arguably one of the worst spells in the entire game. But if for some reason you want to put yourself through the suffering of using it, you can make it slightly less terrible. To increase its duration from 30 seconds to 39 seconds, equip the Old Lord's Talisman, and stack it with Briar Armor for even higher, though still negligible, rolling damage. And there we have it, wizards. I hope this video helped you understand the latest additions and maybe even inspired you to try out a few new spells. If you're hungry for more Elden Ring discussion, join the community over on my Discord server. The link is in the description below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more Elden Ring adventures. Your support really means the world to me. As always, thanks for watching, wizards, for this has been the Welsh Wizard, and I shall see you all in the next one.